Observe this, brother.
All right, we're back. We made it back to observe this. We're talking 1984 through
It's
the
been a
lens.
long time.
It has been. It's been probably like a month and a half.
July. It was before I went to Texas for
Yeah.
All In, and that was a while back.
Yeah,
That was like a month ago.
You know, this stuff is we don't have to be on a deadline here. We're just talking old school wrestling, but we are in a period with 1984 through the lens of the Observer, where a very newsworthy thing happens during this time frame that we're covering it, that I was kind of even shocked to read, even though I know this time frame and I should have expected it, but it still shocked me when I read the issue. But before we even get to that, I want to ask you a question. So you live in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine, but actually I don't know this about you. Are you like a comedy guy? Do you go to comedy shows? Because I know LA has like some of the classic comedy clubs out there.
I have. Maybe I take it for granted. I mean, you're asking me that question. I would say that I'm not. I'm not going weekly, but I've gone more than most people, I would assume. Yeah, because we have the Comedy Store here. We have the Laugh Factory, which is another classic comedy venue. We have a bunch of them. I would say at least like 6 or 7 that are well known. So yes, I have.
Okay, so the reason for this question is because one of the things that my wife and I do, that we have a local comedy club in Sunnyvale where I live. And every once in a while, someone will come through that she knows from a podcast, or somebody that, may have this, comedy special that we have watched or something. But also sometimes, it might be a slow week and they're giving out free tickets and we just roll through, like just not even knowing who's going to be in it. And so that's what we did.
But they get you when you're in there, though.
Yeah, because you buy a couple drinks and
well, you have to, from what I
yeah,
understand.
for sure. Like you want to support, like I want to support this comedy club so that it exists as long as it possibly can, for sure. So we went tonight, as we're recording this, we went tonight. And sometimes I like not knowing who we're going to see, because then you're kind of like surprised. And so we saw this really funny lady. Her name was Allie McSomething. But my thought was, because I have been to comedy clubs, local comedy clubs in the Bay Area, obviously not as well known or whatever as LA, but San Francisco has some really good ones. San Jose has a good one. My question to you is, have you been to a comedy show and there was somebody who you went to see that sort of like within the next 6 months to a year, all of a sudden they take their act from the local comedy show and they're blowing up, they're on TV, they're in they're doing arenas. Like, have you seen them kind of come through and then blow up afterwards?
No, I mean, I've seen comics who have gotten their own show. Like there was this one guy. I think his name is Luis Quinones.
Mm-hmm.
He did the show on Hulu called This Fool,
Mm-hmm.
which is a pretty damn good show. And I saw him maybe about 4 years ago, like when he was just opening up. I went to see. Actually, it was before that, because I went to see Gilbert Gottfried, because he was on my bucket list. I love that guy, man.
Legend.
So I went to see him, and that guy Luis Quinones opened up for him. I think that's his name. I'm sorry if I get in the wrong name, but he was, yeah. So then later on, when we saw him me and my brother saw him on that one show, This Fool, we're like, that's the guy, But I wouldn't say that he blew up. He still does. I still see him pop up on flyers, because one trippy thing about here too is that they still old school flyer the town.
Yeah.
Like I'll be driving and I'll see like on the telephone post, there's like, oh, tonight in the comedy. It's very much like an indie show, like a wrestling indie show.
Yeah, for sure. Going to a comedy show or a comedy club, the clubs like Bruno Sammartino used
That's
to say.
Right.
I've seen 2. I can remember 2 where I have this memory of seeing them, and then not that much longer, they kind of take it to a different level. Now, Joe Coy, this is years and years and years ago. I used to hear Joe Coy on the podcast circuit because he's very popular on the podcast circuit. He'd be on a podcast and he'd do his little bits and he'd create characters. So he runs through San Jose at the San Jose Improv, and we get to see him do his shtick. And very soon thereafter, he's like doing big arenas, like, you know, going from a 300 to 500 seat comedy club to like a giant arena.
I would never go see a comic at an arena.
No, you know, me neither.
I would feel like such a mark if I did that. Like,
yeah,
I would,
like the way to do it is to go to your local comedy show, but not all the top comics are going. Like the one I missed out on was a couple years ago. Arsenio Hall decided to run through to do a couple shots, and I was like, oh, of all times for me to miss a show like Arsenio Hall.
And where was he at? At the Chase or something?
No, through the local
Oh
clubs.
man, you did miss out.
Yeah, I was so bummed I couldn't go. But anyway, so Joe Coy is one. The other one, Crystal and I are very early in our dating life. So this is probably 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki Glazier runs through San Jose Improv, and we go and see her. And I'm like, okay, this woman is like obviously a little too good for this club here. She needs to be bigger and doing more stuff. And then it was like 6 months later, she's like, you know, on late night shows and, you know, hosting stuff. And I was like, that's exactly where she deserves to be, because she was awesome. But sometimes they'll kind of come back too. Like they'll do like the big stuff, but they kind of like to, they like to test out their new stuff sometimes, and they'll go to the local stuff. Like Whitney Cummings came through and I missed her. People like that who are like really successful, but maybe not like Hollywood successful, but going to our local thing. I like to see the people come through, because I'm like, I wonder, you know, you kind of like go almost like if you're watching a young wrestler and you're like,
yeah, like with
the top,
like the PWG era that I supported, you know, all those guys, they all became top guys in WWE or AEW.
Yeah.
So, and then you saw them when they're like, you know, because back then PWG was drawing like maybe 150 people at a gym, you know. So, it's like anything, you know, you support the local band, the local comedian, the local wrestler, and then when they blow up, same thing with filmmakers, you know, even like with filmmakers, I mean, James Gunn, you know, he was like a schlocky filmmaker, you know, with just doing these films that were like so like gory or whatnot. Now he's like a multi-billionaire running, you know, Warner Brothers, the DC portion of Warner.
Do you like Superman?
Yeah, that was all right. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't for me, but I could see why people liked it.
Did you like Superman or Fantastic Four better?
I like Fantastic Four better, but it flopped, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm like either or. Like they were pretty close. Like if I was to lean more to like my style of movie, Fantastic Four I liked a little bit better. Superman had a little bit of a message to it, which was kind of cool at the same time. But yeah, they were both fine. But it
was. I wasn't expecting it to be that silly. It was just too silly for me.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm used to like the Zack Snyder version of Superman, which is like
right.
the other, you know, the whole other side of the spectrum, where it's like very serious, and some people would say downright depressing. You know, but I like those character studies. This is my thing. So I gravitate more towards that Superman than the cartoony, you know, version of the one we got, you know. But
where were you on the side of the argument when it came to, did Superman sell too much in that movie?
Oh, he sold. Oh, if I liked it or not? I mean, that he sold.
Just
he definitely
the
sold,
idea that he sold. That like, were you into it?
Constantly getting his ass whooped.
Yeah.
You know what? Because I'm not. I'm gonna take one of your stance, one of your very popular stance, because I'm just an observer and I'm not really a fan. To me, it doesn't really matter. You know, I was more focused on the story as somebody who's like has filmmaking experience or whatnot, and the story was okay. I mean, it wasn't anything too big.
But you were happy that they didn't go back to the origin story that we've seen. Like,
we don't have to see that. And I appreciated the heel turn from the parents, which I thought was a very, very unique way to give us more of a development from Superman, because we've never had that before. You know, it's always been the parents kind of support him and come and help out here, and then it's like, No, you got to colonize, boy. That's what you got to go to Earth for. And so I thought that gave him a new dimension, you know. So which he's gonna get to explore when Supergirl comes out next
Yeah.
year, you know.
All right, we weren't here to talk comedy and movies, but I thought it was a nice little icebreaker here as we get into 1984. So we're in the summertime, you know, the June-ish time frame, July-ish time frame. It's kind of hard to figure it out because Dave's like he's still writing. I think he's about on every 3 weeks. He will have a new issue out time frame. So previously, before this, it was once a month. He shortened it to every 3 weeks. So that's where we are right now as far as
That
his
means that he's starting to
publishing.
make money. That's what that means.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And also the issues were getting so big. And so if the issues are getting so big, you need to charge and you got to raise prices. And so I think he was trying to figure out a way to, you know, make the consumers feel like they were getting their value for their dollar at the same time.
right. Yeah. Well, he didn't have a lot of them because he still had to have a full-time job during this time. But,
All right, here's the news that even though I knew, just reading it shocked me. Vince McMahon Sr. dies.
yeah.
There's no preamble. There's no, you know, Vince Sr.'s been sick for, 4 months or for a couple of weeks. It's just after, we just got through David Von Erich dying, and now Vince McMahon Sr. passes away. And obviously know the story, but just thinking about like this time frame, I was like, oh yeah, this is what happens. And you know what's interesting? I did a episode of Wrestling Observer Radio with Big Dave, and one of the reader questions or the listener questions was just this like crazy hypothetical, which was if Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. never connect, like what happens? Who is the next person in line to run WWF? And the answer, the right hand man is one of your favorites, Gorilla Monsoon.
Of course, Gino. Yeah.
And so then what? How does he? What does Gorilla do? And Dave basically Dave said Gorilla's a little bit more old school. He's going to lean towards the bigger guys, but he's not going to have the idea of like we're taking over. He's going to be more friendly with all these other guys.
Yeah, Gino was just gonna follow the format of Vince Sr., which was
Mm-hmm.
the bring the heels in, do the loop, watch, rinse, repeat, which worked for Vince Sr. for years and years and years. And that's what Gorilla knew, right? That's what he knew. So he was gonna stay with that. At the same time, Gino was one of those guys that had a lot of honor amongst thieves. You know how they have that saying? Like he was a guy that respected a lot of the boundaries. And so he would have just kind of stayed in his territory. Ultimately, what I think would happen, because he also wasn't going to adapt because he was older and he was more traditional. Eventually, one of the bigger, whether it was Watts or Crockett, they were probably going to take over New York. That I think that's what would have happened eventually later on down the road. But that's such a butterfly effect that we don't even know where they would be without Vince Jr. You know. So for all we know that no, that's not, because the cable system is really what killed the territories. It wasn't really Vince Jr. It was so one of them was gonna go national, and that's what the consumer was gonna watch, and that's what they were gonna accept. And whomever that was gonna eat up all the same thing that Vince did, except maybe not in that same route, because cable killed the territories. So somebody was gonna land on cable, and even if that territory didn't want to go national, they were going to go national because of the demand, because they were on national television,
Somebody was going to just go like, all of a sudden we're reaching people halfway across the U.S. What if we ran a show? Would we be able to draw? And once you start playing that game, the engines are starting.
Yeah, but it was gonna be. I could almost see it as almost against their own will. Like the promoter would be like, "Well, I don't want it," like because they all wanted to follow the little structure they had. So eventually, one of them was just gonna do it by default, And then
Yes.
that, who knows what would have happened from there. I'm sure that person would have had hit send on him as well. Maybe they would have sent Harley Race to go break his leg. But if it was Bill Watts, shit, that ain't happening.
Well, Dave's thought on Bill Watts was just that he had the unfortunate scenario geographically of just being in Oklahoma, and you'd rather be in New York or you'd rather be in the Carolinas than be in Oklahoma if you're going to try and if you're going to try and drive business.
Yeah. Vince did definitely have the territory that, one that was already an advantage, being in New York City or whatever.
Yeah.
And Dave will never let you forget, because Dave hates Vince and WWF and WWE. So the evil empire, as Brian says, Dave's always calling WWE.
Well, we're definitely going to talk about some current day WWE in the second half of this show. But so who else dies right around this same time? So we're it's probably within the month. I don't know the exact days. The other person who passes away, and somebody as well who is sort of influential, obviously not as important as Vince Sr. Andy Kaufman dies.
Man, that's right. Yeah. But right after he got work going to Central South America, and they worked them on taking out the cancer.
So, do you remember when you first saw the Andy Kaufman and David Letterman?
I was too young. I caught up with that stuff when I was a teenager.
Yeah, but so okay. So I didn't. I wasn't trying to think if I was a teenager or not. Okay, but when you first saw it,
I could tell. Okay, so I could tell when I first saw it. I saw it in that Comedy Central special.
Okay.
That they ran. With the one that I'll never forget. They interviewed Robin Williams. He's in there protecting kayfabe all the way. By the way, he's talking about how you try to talk him out of it. But yeah, and did you ever see that special? It's the famous special.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, it's a Comedy Central special. It probably came out in the early '90s, and it's all about that feud. And that's the first time that I got exposed to that. And then later on, through the magazines, history, internet, tape trading, I got to see the entire feud develop.
Okay, but when you saw it, did you wonder if it was real or fake, or were you already aware enough by that time frame?
I was already aware enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I was already aware enough. And I was such a Jerry Lawler mark very early on as well. Talking like 94, 95. And so I already knew that it was a work. What I didn't know, let me tell you what I didn't know, to bring it back full circle, because both of these, they died around the same time. I didn't know that Andy Kaufman was going to Memphis was plan B, because originally he wanted to do this in New York, and Vince Sr. was like, no, that's too silly for this territory, and he rejected him, and
especially a big man territory. And Andy Kaufman he's not short guy, but he's just a skinny guy.
Yeah, he's a skinny guy. Yeah. He's yeah. Now there is a part of the story that I forget. Somebody referred him to Memphis, and and I'm sure Dave knows this. Maybe I got it from Dave. I'm sure I got it from Dave, but
I think it was Apter. Wasn't it Apter?
You know what? You're right. Yeah. That sounds about right. So when he got rejected in New York, somebody referred him to Memphis, and then Jerry Lawler would do anything with anyone. So the rest is history. But yeah, and then obviously they ran it so long that it ended up kind of like becoming like whatever. Kind of like how Logan Paul's becoming, He's
got a big match with John Cena coming up that I was like, really? This was one of our last matches that John Cena's going to have? The one we didn't ask for, Logan Paul?
Well, they had to move it up because once they want to fuck with AEW, so they saved that one for, the one that really matters on the same day as All Out.
Yeah. Okay, so this is kind of funny in the way that how time works in 1984. So we talked about this last episode, but Ric Flair had already gotten the belt back from Kerry Von Erich, and things were back to normal. But Dave writes saying that here's how kind of the way that time travels. He says so he believes the treatment of the belt with the short title reign may make it lose its luster. So the 18-day title reign that Kerry Von Erich got from Ric Flair, and then Ric Flair won it back in Japan. By the way, best of 3 falls match.
That's
Dave
right.
thinks, this is a very significant belt, and the fact that you lose it so quickly after you win it, the belt in of itself, or the title, is actually hurt. He said it wasn't announced on Georgia TV until June 2nd, but by June 2nd, Flair already had the belt back. So Kerry Von Erich's title change win wasn't announced on their television, Georgia's television, until after Rick had already got the belt back. So just the time travel, the time flying.
It was a smaller world back then.
So Dave also thought they could switch the title again because the NWA was going to put on a big show at the Orange Bowl, and the big show at the Orange Bowl was there to counter WWF show. So, we're in this world today of 2025, 41 years later. And the talk of the town, like you just mentioned, is counter programming against big shows. And here we are in 1984. WWE is going national. They're going into territories. And Florida Championship Wrestling is like, we need help. We need to run a crazy show because they're coming into our dates and in our town, and we have to not allow them to bully us. And so Ric Flair is going into this big match at the Orange Bowl as a champion. And Dave's like, they may do another title change because they need something to fight off WWF coming into their territory.
Who was he going to wrestle? Who was their Florida guy at this time?
It
wasn't Dusty anymore because Dusty is already with Crockett.
So the show doesn't happen yet, and I'm not skipping ahead, so we will probably have it next week. I thought it was maybe Wyndham or something like that, but I don't remember.
No, because Wyndham's in WWF at this point.
Okay,
so it can be Wyndham. He's over there doing with Mike Rotundo.
Okay, this early he's already there.
Yeah, so he's on his way, but he's also too young. He's not the Wyndham that we would know right after his run with Rotundo. Maybe one of the Briscoes. We'll see. I'm trying to think of all the Florida guys that were over enough to headline a show like that, But what's interesting about that statement from Dave is that we already had a precedent because, first of all, Dusty Rhodes' reigns were all very short. They were maybe a couple weeks, 3 weeks, maybe the most a couple months. So Dusty had already switched the title a few times with short reigns in the early 80s. And then also we had the infamous Tommy Rich one, which was also a short reign. So yeah, I don't know why Dave would think this is kind of like the end all be all, because we already had a precedent with that a few times actually, with Dusty and Tommy Rich getting those short reigns. Even Ric Flair's first reign wasn't that long either, because he just felt he wasn't ready. But who knows? Maybe he sees the competition getting stiffer with Hogan on top, and he feels like now you really have to protect the belt,
Right.
Because Hogan wouldn't drop it till 88, so he had a long ass reign.
So the NWA also runs a show in the Meadowlands. So this is their infringing on the WWF territory. And the only television they have, which we talked about before, is Spanish language. And so they did actually run what we would consider today a successful show. They did 13K, but compared to WWF, they did 8.5 thousand less. So it was actually seen. It wasn't seen as like a giant success in any way because they did so much less than WWF. That show was headlined by Flair and Steamboat. And Dave said that the reports of Flair and Steamboat were slightly disappointing.
Yeah, I was gonna say they were younger, but they weren't that younger. That was because they started feuding in the late 70s.
Yeah.
So by this point they should have had their act together. And then Steamboat would be on his way out because he wasn't one of Dusty's guys. So maybe he just didn't give a fuck at the end. He's like, you know what? I'm on my way out. I'm gonna go become the Dragon.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go get dropped on my head by Jake the Snake. So,
man.
But yeah, so that's, I don't know. That's probably an off night. Ric Flair rarely had him, but I'm sure he did once in a while.
So supposedly the Junkyard Dog was to face Jose Gonzalez, the infamous one. But he no-showed, and Dave wrote that it was after a conversation with Jim Crockett. What that conversation was about, he didn't really mention, so maybe there's more information there, but JYD decided not to go to that show and be on that show. And so somebody who we know and love is finally going to make his debut in WWF. Jesse the Body Ventura leaves AWA with no warning whatsoever.
None of them did.
Just gone, just ready to go. And Dave writes that Tony Atlas was either fired or he no-showed, and he is also gone from WWF. Tony Atlas he's talked about these, like, that moment before. He's said stuff like he thought maybe he was going to be the guy instead of Hogan.
I don't know about that. There's a lot of things working against.
This is Tony. This is what Tony is saying. And then he mentions, just being, fired or being booked out of the territory or whatever. But when I was younger and I saw what this dude looked like, I was like, this is the most impressive human I've ever seen in my entire life. And this is, 83, 84. And I'm a Rocky kid, right? So I'm in that world of Stallone's body just changing. And so I look at Tony Atlas and I'm just thinking, like, how is this guy not the champ? He just looks like he should be the champ. And little did I know of all of the issues that he would have.
Yeah, you were being influenced by that kind of world. Okay.
So here's the thing, and I don't know if you heard about this. Supposedly, now this is today. Supposedly, Tony Atlas tried to do a eulogy for Hulk Hogan at like an independent show, and they booed, and he just quit doing the eulogy. I think that was in today's Observer. Like, he was trying to do something for Hogan, the fans booed, and he just stopped. He was like, "Okay, I quit. I'm not doing this thing."
Well, I mean, he did. I think I probably would have done the same thing, but it's just weird that he would try to do that. Why was it like so random?
Yeah.
They never had the reputation of being friends. Maybe just casuals. And then he, as an African American man, I mean, I don't know what kind of opinions he had on Hogan, but that was weird. You're right.
Did you watch any of that Vince stuff?
The documentaries that are out?
Yeah.
No, I haven't had a chance to watch not the Fox one or the there's two of them, right?
Yeah, there's two of them.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's all fluff. It's all fluffy. I got really burned out on that Untold bullshit, man. Totally. I don't want to see any of that stuff.
I haven't watched the last episode, but I'm entertained because I think it's very well produced. But it's a narrative of a narrative, so it's kind of interesting.
But then I see your boy like Bill Simmons marking out for it, and
he's a casual fan, that's why.
But he's also a reporter. He should know better. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then also like Ariel Helwani, he's marking. It's like, bro, come on, like you guys know better.
Yeah, that's a little different.
They both are. I know Bill Simmons is they're both equally up their ass.
Well,
and it's business. I get it. It's business. They're both tied with Nick Khan. I think Nick Khan probably represented both of them at one time.
But he's not Bill's agent, but there's definitely like I don't know. I don't know if there's a relationship there, but Nick Khan is somehow liked by just about everybody. So
you know what I will say, he comes off as a cool dude because I've been watching a lot of. He does fascinate me. Okay. Because every interview, because he's very smart, but he's also there's that snaky smart. You know what I'm saying? That corporate smart. He knows what to say, but he's also a guy that because he had what's a very good interview, but you would have to get over the fact that Stephanie McMahon is the one interviewing him. Because anything with her is gonna come off as fake, right? Like I don't even bother with any of her podcasts because it's like, but with him, like he really let his guard down with her. Yeah. I don't know if and it was fascinating. Like it was more about his family. and him growing up as a fan and him being broke when he was younger. They talk about working WrestleMania 9 as an usher.
Yeah.
And it's just so fascinating to me because like he is a fan, like he's still a fan of the business. And I think that helps him kind of strategize because he understands being a fan. So I'm really fascinated by him. But like Bill Simmons, yeah, I mean he's very above the water when he's asking these questions, you know. But then, like you said, he's not gonna go deep because he has no reason to. He doesn't really know that world. So
Old
there's no
school
reason.
Observer subscriber too from back in the day.
Yeah. So so I don't know why we got on this topic, but anyways.
No, it's just we started about Vince. So a very short but kind of important show debuts around this time as well. Tuesday Night Titans, TNT.
Right.
Well, when I was younger, you know, the whole thing for me as a brand new WWF fan, right? And they were very smart about this. Video cassette stores are exploding all over the place. And Coliseum Home Video, which wasn't it like a porn, like a porn distributor or something?
I think it was created for WWF because Hillbilly's Gym had stock in it, and that's why
Oh, wow.
He didn't really wrestle as much because he made out like a bandit with Coliseum Video, and so that was essentially WWF's brand to produce videotapes. But yeah, TNT was awesome. It was like a Tonight Show kind of a show where he would have guests, and what a unique way to promote your wrestlers, right? Because they got promo time, and you got to see their personalities, and some of the best like unintentional comedy you're ever gonna see. And I love that stuff. I eat that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. Like I could go back and watch all that run today and just have a good time because Lord Alfred Hayes is like such a character. Like he's so out of his element being the what was Johnny Carson's sidekick? What was his name?
Ed McMahon.
Ed McMahon, being the Ed McMahon with the British accent, and he seemed so lost that it was charming and it was funny to me, and it still is to this day. And Vince just being wacky Vince, right? Just so outrageous. What did you think of those shows? I really enjoyed them.
Okay, so when I would have first seen them, I don't know when the first tape started coming out. I'm gonna guess 86 time frame. And so in 86, a lot of the content is from the early to the mid 80s. Like they're not necessarily up to date. It's kind of you're getting a little bit of history.
The pre-Dick Emerson era that's very hard to watch.
So you know, they do volume 1 and volume 2, and there's a Hulkamania, which the Hulkamania tape is amazing for someone who's like getting into this stuff. But they did a TNT tape too, Best of TNT or whatever it was called. And I remember renting that and going like, I'm a little sad because there's not really matches on it, and it's a lot of interviews. But the actual show, I don't even remember how long it ran, but the actual show would have these interview segments, and then Vince would throw to matches. And a lot of times it was like if you were watching WWE TV, you'd already seen this match. It's, you know, it's like a same match that was on Primetime Wrestling or
they would do that a lot back then.
Yeah, so you're seeing like the same thing. But I just remember going like, when are my guys coming on? Because what it was a great vehicle for heels. Because the heels could go on there and they could do despicable things. Like I remember Randy Savage like threatening to backhand Miss Elizabeth like a bunch of different times on the same thing. You had Bobby Heenan and Orndorff is like flexing his muscles and kissing his biceps.
Remember, we had Fuji Vice on that show.
That Fuji Vice was fantastic. Also, I don't remember if this exactly happened or if I just thought it did. I want to say it was like Afa or Sika like bit a head of a chicken off or pretended to bite the head of a chicken or something like that.
No, it's on there.
So, stuff like that where I was just like, okay, this is a wacky world that I'm kind of.
Have you seen the one where David Schultz shot an actual gun in the studio?
I remember that. See, sometimes because of these tapes, sometimes I didn't exactly know where this stuff originally aired because they would just package it all up and they would put it onto different tapes. But I did realize later that these were all segments created for TNT.
Right. Right. And Vince
What
goes off on him like as a shoot on the air, which is weird to see.
was the one where Hogan is training Gene because they need a main event for Minnesota. And so he wakes up Gene and he's doing
With
the
the eggs. This is the
protein
Rocky
and
gimmick, yeah.
the eggs, and he throws like tuna in it and stuff. And like, is that a TNT segment?
No. That was done for the video for
Okay.
Hulkamania
Okay.
2, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cause like I could like sometimes like they were just I didn't know what was created for
And then
what.
they run. Remember they're
Yeah.
jogging. Yeah,
And
that's so
like
cool.
Gene's got like smoking a cigar. And then he actually does the match, and that match is against Mr. Fuji and George the Animal Steel before George the Animal Steel turned babyface.
That's right. Yeah. Like you said, in Minneapolis.
All right, we're getting off tangent, but it's fun tangents. Cyndi Lauper, David Wolf, and Captain Lou Albano are mentioned for the first time as working together and doing the Cyndi Lauper videos. So it's Dave's first mention of what actually becomes these are little origin stories for what becomes WrestleMania. And he writes Hulk Hogan's big title defense of his IWGP crown, most likely against Antonio Inoki on June 14th, will feature a special guest appearance by Sylvester Stallone. Stallone will present the title belt and trophy to whomever wins the 614 match Hulk is involved with. What, if any, significance this has, I don't know. This never happened, right?
No, I don't have no memory of this, or I haven't seen any evidence of this.
Okay.
So I'm sure something happened.
Yeah, something happened.
Slight big league them, I think is what happened.
He had to shoot. I gotta shoot Cobra. No, Cobra would have been
Rambo too.
Yeah, Rambo. Okay, so in New Japan, so Vince McMahon Sr. was supposed to be on some of these New Japan shows, and Dave wrote that Stu Hart had to replace him. And here's Dave's writing about it. Stu Hart appeared early in the series as a replacement to Vince McMahon Sr., who was dying. That's literally the sentence. It's a nice sensitive sentence there. And so then also Dave believes Playboy Buddy Rose has jumped to Vince after losing the Northwest title to Rip Oliver. This one fascinated me. Playboy Buddy Rose does show up in WrestleMania 1 as the executioner or whatever. But Playboy Buddy Rose, great personality, great charisma, but the flabbiest non-Vince McMahon Jr. style body that you could ever imagine. Now, Adrian Adonis would get away from it, but he was never pushed seriously when he did get really big. But Playboy Buddy Rose, what do you think about his fit in WWF?
I mean, he didn't, and that's why he was a jobber. I mean, he was a comedy jobber. But if you see his stuff in Portland and his stuff in like San Francisco, he was anything but. So it was weird. And I learned this later on in the tape trading days, but because to me, growing up, all I knew was Playboy Buddy Rose from like the blowaway diet, right?
Yeah.
Where he threw the powder on his stomach and he turned on the fan, and it's supposed to blow away your fat. They would never get away with these commercials nowadays, by the way. And so that's what I knew him as. And then when I started getting more smart to the business, and I'm like, this guy was a top guy, like in Oregon or whatever. And then I was like, no way. And then when I saw the tapes, I was like, oh shit. And he was a great worker too. But
the good thing about that time frame though is when he was tag team with Doug Summers, like they were a good tag team. And they had the feud with the Midnight Rockers, which really put the Midnight Rockers on the map.
Right. No, yeah. He still had it by that point. This is like 88 around there.
Yeah.
But when he went to Vince full time right after the AWA, he was way too overweight for him to be taken seriously. Now the 84 run, I think he was just doing shots here and there. I don't think he had like a whole. And also, like you said, even then. He was never like a guy that was in shape, even when he wasn't as big as he got later. But that's probably why Vince put him in the mask. That's probably. I mean, and then also like I also feel that during that era, Vince was a little more open minded to the people that would come in and get shots, here and there, especially for the mid card. So I don't know. Maybe he was one of the guys that he felt, okay, let's see what he has, and then. But he also had a lot of issues with drugs too, so that's another thing.
So Memphis, now we're talking about how these territories are kind of combating Vince McMahon trying to come into their area. So Dave writes, this group is probably the most unique method of combating the Vince McMahon invasion. McMahon has a show booked on June 24th in Memphis. He also debuts the following night in Louisville. That same night from 8 to 10, directly opposite the card, WMC TV, the NBC affiliate in Memphis, will broadcast a special Jerry Lawler show with special guests like Dusty Rhodes, Jimmy Valiant, and get this, the return of Stan Lane and Steve Keirn. It's the most bizarre setting because also on the show will be the first meeting of Lane and Keirn with their imitators, Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert. So Memphis was like, oh, you're coming in and you're running a house show. We're going to put Jerry Lawler on broadcast television or their local broadcast or whatever. And that's how we're going to combat you.
Yeah. And it's interesting to see that technically Vince is the underdog here in all these battles in all these cities. So he's just plugging away.
He's got
now, Hogan. Is he a money mark? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Like, because I feel like his money was like he had a finite amount of money, unlike TK. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I do agree that he got a sweetheart deal for the company. That's the whole different argument. But he was kind of like running out of money here, trying to combat all these different cities and territories and whatnot.
And there was not a blueprint in doing what he wanted to do. Like he was kind of creating the blueprint and he was learning from his mistakes too, right? Like he was like, okay, well, we did this didn't work. We got to do it a different way. And, let's go buy the television contract of these, let's get NW or AWA's TV in the Bay Area and like just doing those kind of things. So.
But I feel like the bigger the institution was in that local city, the harder it was for him to eventually win. Like Memphis, Jerry Lawler was literally the king of Memphis. And so it took years for Vince to get in there and really hurt that territory. There was others like Dallas, for example. And so
they still don't really run Tennessee all that often.
They kind of do. They were just in Nashville recently, and they run it. But I mean, now it's all even playing field. I mean, now you can't really. Even Dallas, I mean, they run Dallas. Nobody remembers the Von Erichs or whatever. So there's this idea that Vince just came and wiped everyone out. That's false. I mean, there was a lot of territories, and even when the territories died because their style of wrestling was different. Vince couldn't draw in those territories, It took a long time. Some of them took all the way to the Austin era.
Yeah.
For them to really be able to draw.
So the question of why the Briscoes would sell their stock to Vince and stab Ole Anderson in the back. So Dave writes, one has to look at the Briscoe brothers' perspective. Ole was running the company into the ground. And who knows if the stock would wind up worthless in 2 years. At the same time, Ole had little communication with his stockholders, particularly Jack and Jerry. So when McMahon came along with what I'm sure was a good price, they jumped.
Now, who's feeding this to Dave? Because it sounds
probably Jim Barnett.
It sounds very one-sided. It's probably Jim Barnett because he has gone. They were boys, So. Because it sounds very one-sided, but we know it wasn't coming from Ole, so there's that.
No way.
But you know what? Yeah, I mean, I guess the Briscoes were like, we got nothing to lose, right? Because this guy's running into the ground. So if we hang out here, we're gonna lose our stock or the value, and we're also probably gonna lose our jobs when eventually the territory closes. If we go to Vince, we're gonna make a little more money up front, and even if that doesn't work out, it's better than this situation.
Yeah.
So they were thinking more of the big picture. And I mean, Jack retired soon after anyway, so it didn't matter. But I mean, Jerry was, one of his lieutenants for years and years and
That's
years.
like
After
the
that.
best decision he would have ever made was that decision.
Yeah, for sure. So it worked out.
All right. We have a couple of Comedy Dave lines here. Not a very Comedy Dave issue, pretty serious issue. And then we'll talk a little bit about the current wrestling
That means
scene here.
that the fabulous Moolah wasn't booked during June, because if she's booked, we're gonna get Comedy Dave.
All right, let's hear from Comedy Dave here. All right. These aren't even strong. Actually, I like the last one, but the first one is just kind of so. There was just so little I had to add this one. So he's been picking on Jules Strongbow, but Jules Strongbow debuted and has beaten Super D1, who is Scott Irwin, and Kelly Kaniski, and gained a DQ win over whom I assume is the missing link. He has actually received some tag team main events with the Von Erich boys. I expected him to be awful, but he's actually far worse than that. His matches with Kaniski, who is a very solid worker, have been as bad as a Junkyard Dog Kamala match, which he wrote in parentheses is the standard for being horrible. So that was a little bit more mean than Comedy Dave, but I had to throw that one in there.
But he took a shot at Junk Food Dog. Like,
it was like Junk Food. JYD's like, this is not even about me.
Yeah, imagine
you're
he's
throwing
reading
me in this thing.
Yeah, and Kamala also took a shot there.
Gosh. All right, the last one is about Abdullah the Butcher. And Dave writes, Abdullah the Butcher, that well-conditioned hard trainer, has been here far too often.
Because Dave loves to body shame. We know that already. Yeah, that's his thing.
Has been here far too often with those 6-minute matches. Abby got him back though with that shoot interview.
Well, yeah, that's a classic. Me and Danny talk about that all the. You made me forget. He got work. Yes, classic. We never saw the cancer or any. They all took their money and left. So the thing about Abby is that I'm surprised he doesn't quote unquote respect him more, because Abby was kind of like a Japan guy too. So, and then Dave's respect goes a little up when you come from Japan, but then again, he was in the as Carl Stern used to call them, the garbage leagues in Japan. So, so that's probably why.
All right, so let's focus a little bit on the current pro wrestling business here. You made a comment to me and said that you're kind of a little bit on the outs with the current scene, which I feel like I'm a little bit on the outs with the current scene as well, but I almost feel like I don't exactly know why, because wrestling fans who are able to follow the thing that they want to follow, they're loving it right now. Like if you're an AEW fan, you get your 2 TV shows and you get your really strong pay-per-views, and WWE fans, you're getting, so much stuff, and now you'll get the ESPN shows, the PLEs on ESPN. So in some ways, I'm hearing from people going like, this is the best time ever in wrestling. Like Big Dave is like, oh, I get to watch Mexico and on Friday nights, and I always wanted to watch this, but I would have to go there. Now I can watch it on streaming. And he's like, almost like it's too good because I don't have time to watch everything. And you and I are a little bit on the other side. We're like, I don't know if I'm feeling it as much. What is your reason for not really feeling it right now?
So I think there's a general malaise, I guess you could say, just with the way the world is right now, And so it's a lot of it is me. There's a lot of real world stressors going on in the world right now. And then also connected to that, I don't know if I could separate like the corporate greed of WWE with the product. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I've cut promos on this show going back 6-7 months with the price gouging and all that stuff. And now it's more evident. Like now it's really in your face. Like now it's very, to me, like they don't really respect the fans. It's like, well, here it is. We're just gonna milk you, and that's it. We're just gonna milk you like a cow, you know. And it's even more disheartening to see the fans just allow themselves to be milked like cows. And again, there's also a part of me that is like, you know what? If this is how you spend your leisure money and you work hard for it, you deserve it. You know, you know, who am I to say don't do it here? But for me personally, it's just kind of like the whole Brock Lesnar coming back. All that stuff just bothers me, and so it's making it difficult for me to enjoy the product, you know. And I'm not gonna, like, you know, virtual signal or nothing like that, because at the end of the day, I'm still watching it,
right?
You know, I've also have to come to terms that I am a hypocrite, because I'm watching it, and I'm okay with that. I've come to terms with that. I've accepted it. I'm not making excuses. It's just wrestling is something that I've watched since I was a kid, and it's hard for me not to watch it completely. It's just I just can't, you know. So I'm okay with supporting a product that has no consequences for people that have done horrific things. I'm okay with it, but it's still hard. And then on the other side, I just can't get into just a match-based promotion. I just can't do it. You know, it's that's not what I'm about. I want the soap opera aspect of it. And yeah, AEW has gotten better, but they haven't gotten good enough for me. Like it's still like the match quality gets way more attention, and I'm not about that, you know. And so I'm not gonna sit there and we talked about it many times. Those 20-minute jobber matches, I'm not gonna. And that's what Collision is, the entire show. Like today, I saw SmackDown, and I'm like, there's not one top guy that made it to that show. Not one. Like Cody wasn't there, Punk wasn't there, Roman wasn't there. Nobody was there. It was all mid-carders or up. Drew McIntyre was the top guy, and he cut a promo. That's it. And I'm like, people are paying hundreds of dollars to go watch a mid-level show, you know? And don't even get me started on Collision, because we've seen those lines for Collision. I mean, you couldn't pay me to go sit and watch, you know, 5 jobber matches for 20 minutes. Like, so that's kind of where my head's at right now, you know? And you're right, it's weird because it shouldn't be that way. I mean, wrestling, I mean, John Cena's finally, they kind of course corrected. It was awkward as fuck, but now we're gonna see that run that, you know, what does the John Wayne run, as Jim Ross used to say. And that should be fun, but it's not for me, you know, because it's like, I don't know. So yeah, so right, I mean, I'm still up to date. I told you I'm not 1992 Bill Watts and stuff. I'm not completely disconnected, but nothing captures my imagination right now. So I did love All In though, because I got some dope ass seats.
Yeah, you got great seats at All In. That was incredible. The thing about the AW now, I'm going to guess that the style of fan that you are is just slightly different than, I don't even know what you would call the fans who are just all about the matches. Like they don't even.
I call them the Melkerites. You know, I have a name for them.
They barely want to see promos, but see, Dave is like heavy into promos too. Like Dave knows, like you got to talk him into the building. And some people, like, you know, they really are just about the matches. But there's also this thing that I find really interesting, and I've gone on record. I think Tony Khan is, from the time I don't know him as a human, right? I know him through being able to interview him and email with him back and forth a few times. But I feel like he's probably a pretty good dude if just based on what I have seen and things that I've talked to him on and off the record. But at the same time, he is a billionaire who's running a company. AEW doesn't they don't support a union for the wrestlers. Not that we've heard anything about them kiboshing one. Like the wrestlers don't have a union, but I'm sure Tony Khan is better off for them not having a union. We know that their TV deal increased, you know, X-fold, and I know that the wrestler salaries did not increase by the same multiplier. Not that I expected it to. Tony Khan is a businessman. He put all the money into that company. He can run the business in what. So it's not even a judgment on that. But my overall sort of question to you is, why do you think the AEW fans look at Tony Khan as like, we need to protect this guy, we need to save this guy? Anybody says anything bad about our guy TK, like, we can make fun of him being a little goofy or doing stuff like this.
Today's been one of the greatest days in the history of AEW.
He always does, like, that kind of, like, they can make fun of it, but the second anybody goes, I don't think this booking is great, like, they're so ready to defend him. What is it about Tony that makes that fan base so defensive, almost to the point of apologizing for him? But
I think Tony represents a team, right? Like your sports team that you root for, and he's the mouthpiece for that, and he's kind of like the leader of that. So it's funny how when there's been studies on like group psychology, and how when you get a group together that has a similar belief, individual consciousness goes out the window, and it becomes kind of like a collective conscious. It's actually kind of scary when you actually read all the studies, and that's what happens in sports. Have you ever noticed when you go to a Niners game or a Giants game, everybody loves each other because they're all there for the Giants or the Niners, right? Or the Warriors.
Except for when the Dodgers come in and I see all them blue shirts, I start hating everybody.
But that's different. But okay, but then the Giants fans collectively hate the Dodgers
together.
fans.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter. You honestly, you could be right next to somebody who like, and I'm gonna get very dark here, but this is the only example that comes to my mind, like a child predator or something, right? And they're a Giants fan. Doesn't matter because we're on the same team, and we're gonna hate the Dodgers together. There's part of our brain where the frontal lobe, where reasoning is, shuts off, and the survival aspect of it, which is the midbrain, turns on, and it's all very emotion based. And right now we're at the point, and this took years to get to this point, where we are in that tribalism part with AEW and WWE, and I don't even see any way around it. We're gonna have to see it play out and see where these companies are in 10 years, because now it's gonna become generational. So it's to the point now where it doesn't. Tony Khan is just a representation of the team. You know, nobody even knows the man. The man could be worse than Vince for all we know. We don't know. That'd be pretty hard, but we don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not. But he could have done some horrible things. We'll never know, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because he's our leader, and he represents the team that I root for and I identify with. Because remember, what we do as fans too is that we attach part of our identity onto whatever we're rooting for. So if you're attacking Tony Khan, you're also attacking me, because so much of my identity is based on that product, you know? And so it gets very intertwined like that, especially when you start making friends that are also supportive of AEW, then it becomes even harder to break that chain. So that's why people are very protective. They're protecting themselves by protecting Tony Khan. And it's the same thing with Paul, with Triple H, you know? I was the one that's been screaming since WrestleMania in LA that he's a horrible booker. Nobody listened to me. This guy literally had no plans other than just wait till The Rock comes back. That was his plan. And he band-aid his way through all these little PLEs. So, but again, he's also beloved, you know? But there again, I think going back to where I'm at with wrestling, I mean, you know this. I mean, the Observer was my little happy place for years and years. And then now, I mean, it's evident to me and to a lot of other people, Dave does have a stance in this, and it's fine. Like, he's a human being. It's like, but this idea that Paul is like the like what Brian said, you know, like, they're not the evil empire. WWE's not, but that's really like the narrative that I keep on hearing, especially from Dave. It's like Triple H could discover the cure to cancer, and Dave will cover how it was unethical how he got there. You know what I'm saying? It's like, doesn't matter, like, because I would say that Paul is also an improvement from Vince, right? From a morale standpoint, from a humanistic standpoint. What do you think? I mean, I would say so.
I think he's definitely an improvement, but he also says stuff that really makes me wonder what kind of sort of cultural intelligence he has. Like he'll say things like, I don't see color, and like we know we know that back in the 1990s maybe you get away with that, but in 2025 it's a really sort of insensitive thing to say. But
Mhm.
even in describing Vince, he'll say things like, well, no human is perfect. And like again, that's another thing that someone could get away with in describing someone who has flaws that you don't really put a spotlight on today. So like to me, I think from the wrestling perspective, I think he does a really good job. I also agree with you when it comes to the booking. I'm not the biggest Paul Levesque Booker fan there is. The part that I am disappointed in him is as the spokesperson for the company, because he says a lot of things that I really, really disagree with morally, and it makes me think that he either doesn't care or he doesn't get it. And I have to think with where he is in the company, he has to get it. So have to go with the idea that he just doesn't care.
Doesn't care what he says. You mean what he's like? How he could? Because I
I
think
don't
he cares
care.
about what his job is. But
What
you're
no, no,
saying
his job is fine. He doesn't care about the things that you just mentioned, like Brock Lesnar coming back. Like to him, like he's trying to make this a pro wrestling angle when the actual question is, how does this tie into the legal trouble? Because Triple H is bullshitting his way through the Brock Lesnar stuff because he is taking his fan base for dummies, which he can
that's
get
where
away.
I'm at. That's where I feel more that he doesn't respect his audience. You know,
So, for instance, what did he say? Well, John Cena's the one calling the shots. When the reality of the situation is they're holding Brock Lesnar out for legality reasons. Like that's the reason. And maybe he doesn't want to say that, which is okay, but don't make this about a wrestling storyline unless you feel like your fans are nothing but marks. And if you do feel like that, I guess you can treat them that way, but at some point, that mentality is going to bite you in the ass.
I mean, but it hasn't though. I get frustrated. Like to me, the first time I saw an inkling of that, well, I've seen it many times, but the one where it was very overt was with the whole R-Truth thing.
Yeah.
You know, where like he straight out said, "Oh, it's part of the show," and I'm like, even like the like the hardcore marks, right? The ones that I still believe it's real to them. Even they knew the news of what was happening with R-Truth, and to him for him to say, "Oh, I was part of the show," it's like, no, it wasn't. You know,
Yeah.
this is the, and so that kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth. But yeah, he's been doing that for a while. He should. I mean, and you know what's frustrating is that there's certain lies that they'll say that even if you're honest, it's gonna be okay. You know, even with the Brock Lesnar thing, like just be honest. Just say, you know what, we have legals checked into it, and we feel that it's okay to bring him back. Are you gonna get heat for it? Yes, you are. You're always gonna get heat for it, but at least you're being honest. You know.
You know what his excuse used to be? The reason we're not doing X, Y, and Z is because if fans Google this person, being China, they would
Right.
find out that she had this past that we are not happy with, right?
I thought
That
you were
was the
talking
whole
about Matt
reason.
Riddle.
Anybody, right? China had the porn stuff, and this was Triple H's excuse for her not being in the Hall of Fame. They have since put her in the Hall of Fame. You Google Brock Lesnar, you probably don't have to go that far into your search to figure out why he was out. Like, so that doesn't play with me. And maybe he can't use that excuse anymore, and maybe that's why he doesn't. But you know, it wasn't that long ago when you treated your audience as kind of smart, like, oh, if they actually Google China, it's not going to be WWE Hall of Famer. It's going to be she was in, she was in adult movies with Sean Waltman, but yet Sean Waltman was in the Hall of Fame. So it like that stuff didn't really make that much sense. And I just, I just feel like as a fan, like, and let's equate this to what you just equated it with real sports. The Dodgers owner, very new owner, very savvy, very rich dude, gonna be successful. if he was just going out here and saying stuff off the cuff, I don't think you would lose your Dodger fandom because it goes way beyond just a stupid owner. But you would probably feel some kind of way. There's a reason why these guys, they kind of stay out of the spotlight. Let's say your GM, Andrew Friedman. If Andrew Friedman started making cultural things, comments about, the different races of the players, you would be like, where the F is this coming from? Like, so it's just so weird that Triple H doesn't have these answers to these very simple questions that have to do with what his job is, which is talent, which is people, which is the culture of the company. And he's just like, it's a business and you fans are too stupid really to understand, so we don't have to be honest. Like, that is the part where I just don't get. And maybe this study that has, or the stereotype that wrestling fans are on a slightly different level of education or whatever they used to say. I mean, maybe some of that is right, because some of the stuff that I do read and I do see from a fandom perspective, I'm like, come on, like, do I have to spell it out in, red pen for you to understand what this is? But what is the defense mechanism? I don't want to know. I just like to see the TV. I don't need to know what goes on in the background. I just can't wait to see what happens next on the show. And that's my stance. And maybe that's all it is to some folks. But like you, I find it a little harder to sit in that kind of gray area, I guess.
But I think honoring our authentic selves, right? Because one thing I don't do about myself, I don't make excuses. Like, again, if I'm supporting a show that has Brock Lesnar on it and I'm watching it, like, I have to come to terms with that, with my own internal whatever I used to. I'm not gonna sit there and make excuses. Oh, well, it's just one time. Oh, well, I'm pirating Peacock. Oh, I'm not gonna do that because that's lying to myself. I'm gonna sit there and say, you know what, I'm not being truthful to my ethics right now. But does the value that I get from wrestling supersede that? And you know what? I'm sad to say that at times it does. And that's something I got to live with. So, I'll give you a quick example because, again, using the Dodgers, I don't know how far the news reached Northern California, but the Dodgers were in hot water for a while because they were not responding to all the ice raids.
Yes, you're right. You're right about that.
So I had gotten together with my friends, and I did say, I was like, you know what? If they don't say anything within the next week, I'm not gonna go to any of the games this year. I'm just not gonna do it. That was my own self-negotiating, which again, it was pretty kind of self-serving, but it was all I could do, right?
Yeah.
Because I was still gonna watch them on TV, but
right.
But I mean, again, it is what it is. But they did speak up and they did donate to certain, nonprofits for immigration. But it took them a long time. But I was ready to make a move. I was like, I'm not gonna go to the game. I'm not gonna go to any live games this year because it's, first of all, it's expensive as hell, and I'm not gonna put that kind of money into their pocket, So I haven't had to make decisions even in sports, when it comes to that. But we'll see. With wrestling, is so hard because it's so ingrained in me. I just can't shut it off, and I don't see myself doing it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, giving up wrestling would be like giving up baseball or giving up the NBA. Like, that would be a hard thing for me to do because it's just in my natural progression. Like, the first thing I do when I wake up is, if it's a Monday, I refresh my podcast feed so that I can see if, Brian and Dave recorded, from the night before. But that's just become so habitual and so much part of my own human process, my daily life process, that it would be really hard to step away. And I'm with you on the, kind of like drawing a line. I remember when Khashoggi was killed in Saudi Arabia, and there was this thought like maybe WWE should postpone their show, and Vince was like, nope, fuck it, we're going. Right. I was like, okay, that's him putting his foot down. And so I didn't watch, I think it was like the first 2 or 3 Saudi Arabia shows. I just didn't watch them. But then when I start doing Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave, like, I can't not watch those because that is part of what we cover. And then, so now I'm a hypocrite for that, but it's because I've taken this position in doing the show in order to do the show to the best of my ability, I have to know what's going. So it was like this weird thing as well.
And you have to be okay with being both. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, and I think that makes people authentic, and people are when people like authentic people, even though they can't really explain why. You know, it's because we don't lie to ourselves, make excuses. But it's been hard. It has been hard. You know, and again, that's just the representation of the entire world that we're living in right now, which makes, for example, to stay on topic here and not go too far into the weeds. What about if Triple H is being influenced like with the people he works with? Because I will say this, and I don't know if
he is.
I don't know if you remember this.
100% he is.
I feel like WWE has regressed over the last 6 months to a year, because when there was that little window where Paul took over before the TKO merger, where we were seeing all these like progressive changes to the point that we didn't even have disqualifications anymore. Remember that? And then once you start getting the TKO influence, I feel like the past year they've kind of regressed back to just being like this corporate heartless machine again. You know, it wasn't always like this when Paul took over. And so I do feel that he's being influenced. It's kind of hard when you're in with the good old boys club, right? And you have Dana White right there flaunting all his money and his power, and you're Triple H, and you're like, well, I could be that too. Why, you know? And so it's hard to like not to go against that when you're always surrounded by that. And Triple H is always surrounded by these like, you know, tough, mean, good old boys, you know, from back in the day. And so I would imagine that it's hard for him. I'm not making excuses for him, but that's got to play into it.
I think you're right. I think it would influence anybody if you want to be successful and you're part of a corporation, and the people atop the corporation say, "Well, this is how we do it." If you don't do it that way, you're not going to be there for very long. So you kind of have to embody what that company is. And you know, you talk about Dana. My biggest worry as a wrestling fan was that WWE would become more like UFC.
And they have been.
They're not there yet, but they are getting closer for sure. Seeing Triple H, you know, go stand next to Donald Trump, and you're like, wait, this is the presidential fitness thing, and one guy's got a bad heart and is jacked up on steroids, and the other guy just eats McDonald's quarter pounders all day long. Like, what are we doing here? RFK is not into vaccines, and he's into all these like wacky, like what is going on here? This is like bizarro world,
right?
And so yeah, like that is a little disheartening. Not that I thought that, you know, the Greenwich snob was this super liberal standing for everybody, but Lance Storm made a good argument saying the reason why the Brock Lesnar thing frustrated him more so than the reasons maybe it frustrated us is he was at WWE, is that, and due in part to Triple H, there were so many gains from the women's wrestling perspective where the women wrestling on many cases, I'm way more interested to watch the women's matches than the men's matches because there's less of them and they seem a little bit more meaningful in the big picture.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you.
But when you bring Brock back, it is a little bit of a step backwards in this progression of what you're telling the wrestling industry, how you care about women. So I thought that was a pretty interesting point, but that also comes from him working there and seeing Vince set up segments where he just gets to make out with women who are like 40 years younger than him, and, you know, setting up spots where he gets to, like, you know, be very disrespectful to women as if they're not human, like those kind of things, which was predominantly a Vince thing. It's a wrestling thing, but Vince has so much control of the business. And then you get to see real progression. And Lance was like, okay, this is like actually a step backwards from where we were.
Yeah, no, I agree with 100%. And so that's kind of where I'm at with wrestling right now. I'm always gonna love it, you know. Like I said, I had a great time at All In. If it was financially, you know, if I had the ability to go to more WWE shows, I would, but I can't because they priced me out of the market. Not that they price me out. It's just I don't see the value in going and paying that much.
What's up with the seat filler gimmick? What happened to that?
Well, they don't go to the Staples anymore. That's my connection.
That's right.
Yeah, they go to the new one up in
Intuit Dome,
yeah, by SoFi. So that's that. I mean, if they go to Staples, I mean, I would get in. There's no problem. I got in for AEW. I mean, it was in, which is another great show. But I've been to 2 great AEW shows, by the way.
Revolution, and then
and All In. No, although I would say that All In is a little overrated. I didn't really. I don't know. It was okay. I thought Revolution was a lot better. I thought All In was the first half was all kind of like middle of the road matches. Those casino gauntlets are like whatever to me. And then I feel like the last 3 matches that got all the hype were a little overrated, in my opinion.
I actually really liked the main event, and I almost never really liked those really gory, like using what did Moxley take a backdrop on, like a bed of nails or whatever, like those kind of things. I mean, I understand why people get into those spots, because it is like, it's dangerous, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it happened. But in the scope of a wrestling match, it kind of takes me out of the wrestling match part of it a little bit. But I was still compelled throughout that match, because it was really about how is Hangman going to win this thing, and I thought they told a good story there.
And one thing, and I know this has been a topic of conversation within the wrestling community, the difference between having great matches and great moments, right? And WWE is so good at the moments, and that's what they thrive on. And as a wrestling fan myself, I mean, I like a combination of both.
Yeah.
Gun to my head, I would say I like moments better, because they
sure.
Especially when you're really connected to the product. And it was evident with that main event, because we had some classic moments in that main event with Daniel Bryan coming in wearing the Blue Panther mask, and then Darby coming down from the ceiling. How many times have we seen highlights on that on TV? 0. They just don't exist anymore. If it was WWE TV, they would be bombarding us with those shots over and over and over. They would have made a music video of Darby coming down with like a new metal band or some shit. But the AEW doesn't do that, and I think that's why their product could come off as flat sometimes, because they just don't focus on the moments. And that's something I hope they get better at, because that's important in wrestling. Another example is because I was there live when Ospreay did the whole thing from the top of the cage.
Mm-hmm.
We've never seen that again. We just haven't seen it. And he damn near killed himself, literally.
Yeah, this dude almost died doing that thing. I thought he broke his hip or whatever when he hit the mat. So I did an episode of Talk is Jericho with Chris and with Mark Ramonde, who wrote.
I saw that. I'm going to listen to it. It popped up on my feed. I did see that.
Okay, so I know what happened during the recording, but I didn't listen back to see what got edited out or what wasn't used. But at some point, Jericho did say, moments are more important than matches. And this is a man who works for AEW.
But it is a man that thinks Vince is his father, like they all do. Remember that.
Sure. And so, like, I was very surprised for him to say it at that moment, because he's not currently on AEW TV, and he wasn't on AEW TV when we recorded it. And I was like, it's really interesting, because you could tell the difference in philosophy. Now, I'm sure he likes Tony Khan as a boss for all the reasons why a lot of, the little engine that could is now an actual wrestling company.
I mean, that was
successful.
Never the little engine that could, bro. Come on.
Well, the origin story of pro wrestling startups is really bad, right? Like, no matter how much money you have, it's really the process and the operation. And Tony Khan was able to create the operation.
This guy had a 5-year losing money business plan, bro. I don't know any company that's gonna do that.
No, they started making money on not great money, but the year that they went into the pandemic, they had just signed a renewal that bumped up their money, which Tony said, had they not signed that through the pandemic, they might have been in they might have been in a bad position. So those early Dynamites that did great ratings, WBD was like, oh, we got something here. We need to keep these guys, and because I think the original deal for the TV was like some sort of barter thing, right? It was like, oh, the AEW gets a little bit of
It was
ad
bad.
money.
It wasn't the best. Yeah, and then they renegotiated midway.
And so that really affected them. Now, I'm not saying that they actually made money, but if you're in a business, that there are, if you get funded,
that video game costed them a lot of money too. They lost money because of that video
stupid.
game.
But the difference between like that kind of company and like something, in tech where I live, is we get invested in, where the venture capitalist fund is giving us money, but they're taking the slice of it in stock, and they get to own part of the company. They're giving us money so that we can exist, but then they're taking some ownership. This was all Tony's money. Like, he didn't have, so that's a little bit of a different ballgame, which is why, I will criticize X, Y, and Z about AEW all day long. But at the end of the day, I go, but who cares? Like, he's sole owner of this thing. It's all his money and nobody else's. So if it's your money, you get to call the shots and it's your deal. And he's been able to do a pretty good job with it. So,
but he's also privileged enough to be able to do that. That's the thing.
Oh, 100%. That's all these guys, man.
And I think
David Ellison is like the richer version of Tony Khan, and he just bought Paramount, and now they just did a deal with the UFC. Like, his dad is the number 2 richest man in the world.
Right. Oh, I know all about that guy. Trust me.
Yeah. It's like insane.
But I mean, not all of them. I mean, there's a lot of self-made people that have been able to get up there. Not a lot, but a few. But the point is that, like, that's another thing. One of the reasons why it's so hard to get behind Tony is because of his background. And
sure, I get that.
Especially in the world that we live in, right, where we're comparing the 1%, to the 99%, and where we're all at. So that's why, like, it's frustrating because, I mean, I don't know if Dave understands that, because Dave's so behind him and damn near calls him his little brother from time to time. And one of the, because I haven't heard any of Dave's shows in a while. But one of the last ones I heard is that I think he was marking out because they watched the same shows growing up or something like that. But I'm like,
like Tony's favorite wrestling shows were Dave's favorite wrestling or something like that.
Yeah, but Dave was giddy when he was sharing that story. That's the thing. But here's the thing, like, to me, like, because Dave, I'm sure, his parents were also very successful. Dave's, and he had, so to me, it's like, is this like a privileged child, like, supporting another privileged child? Not that Dave was a billionaire, but he was well off, because his dad was like an Uber genius or some shit. But the thing is, to me, is like Dave is blind to the fact that people like Tony are not very well liked in society right now. They're just not. Because Tony pretty much has a silver spoon and he could do whatever he wants with it. And then didn't Tony say that? Tony went on record as saying, like, well, if I don't get the deal, I'll just keep the company going. Like, I'm just going to keep it going until it's never going to end because he's a billionaire. So little things like that make it difficult to get behind. So all this to say is that I don't believe they're the little engine that could. They never were the little engine that could. Are they facing the big behemoth that is WWE? But they're all in the same boat. All these people are in the TK's in the same boat as Nick Khan. They're all in the same boat. They don't relate to us. You know what I'm saying? They just
Tony Khan's net worth is more than everybody probably, except for maybe Ari Emanuel, for all I know.
Or maybe even him. Who knows?
I haven't looked at their net worth.
So it's I don't know. It's hard for me.
No, I definitely get your perspective for sure, 100%. And the thing that his dad says is, it's like, yeah, if we had money put away for the kids, and if they want to use the money that I put away for them and burn through it, so be it. Like, that was his reason for starting AEW.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that quote. Let me switch topics here really quick, because I do want to talk about Brock and him coming back, because I was talking about this with Danny.
Mm-hmm.
We heard the reports of, like, how Kenny Omega essentially has to literally go into a self-induced coma every time he does one of these matches now, which is kind of sad.
He said that with Dave and I, where he like was going to bed at like 6 o'clock at night and all that. And I was like, this is insane. Why would you even still wrestle for like if you're this beat up?
Right. Well, it was the same thing that Brock had, right? Brock the same. So me and
The
Danny were thinking
diverticulitis, yeah.
the diverticulitis, yeah. So me and Danny were wondering, like, I wonder if that's why Brock's matches are so short now. I wonder if that's why they're so
From like
basic.
a cardio standpoint,
Right? Because if they're knocking out poor Kenny for weeks on end, I imagine Brock's also feeling it if he has like a long match, you know, and because that's always been something changed from the old Brock to the Brock we have now. I know he's getting older and stuff, but that doesn't mean he changed his style completely to where it became safer, very basic. You know, he doesn't do the Suplex City gimmick anymore, which was over for a while. And I always wonder, why is he doing these like 9-minute main events where he used to go out there and wrestle for 20, 25 minutes? And it could be the diverticulitis. Maybe it also affects him, you know, after every match. We'll see what happens.
Who else
with
in
Cena.
wrestling? Who else in wrestling had that?
Yeah, there was one more person. You're right, and
I know Jim Ross, but he's not a worker. Was there another worker?
No, I think it was Jim Ross. Yeah, we're thinking of Jim Ross. He did get it. You're right.
Okay, yeah, that's something I never thought about when it came to Brock.
Yeah, so that's something. We'll see what happens when he wrestles John Cena. Because man, that guy, I gotta give John Cena credit. That SummerSlam match was awesome.
That was
with
amazing.
Cody. He pulled it out 35 minutes, man, for 47 years old.
Okay, so you're the perfect person to ask this because as I was watching that match, my thought was, okay, if I compare apples to apples, and if I compared, you know, I don't even remember what the last great AEW main event that I would have seen, but I think I sort of compared it to like a great Will Ospreay match because of the history that I have with John Cena. And because of the moments, you know, we're talking about moments like when he does that, what with that, sunset flip moved at the outside. What do they call it? Code Red. When he does the code red to the floor and he does that little smirk, I just popped. Like I couldn't stop smiling when he did that. Like it's the stupidest thing. He's breaking the fourth wall, whatever. But that's just John Cena. I'm like, you know what? I've been watching this dude since 2002 or 2000 whatever. Like this is my moment with him as a fan. And at the end of that match, I go, okay, apples to apples. If I was to like unbiasedly rank this match versus like a great Will Ospreay match, the Will Ospreay match wins in like this unbiased way. But to me, what match did I enjoy most? This Cena match with Cody Rhodes, way more. I loved it way more than this other match that may actually be stylistically better. But where do you side on stuff like that? Like, does that your connection with that match and with Cena, does that supersede maybe some of the other stuff that you've seen, like a Will Ospreay jumping off the cage?
Well, I think Will Ospreay is kind of like not the best example right now because he's done a lot of good character work over the last couple of years. So he's getting to the point where like we're connecting to the character of Will Ospreay, and like I said earlier, that helps. Moments help, he's such an endearing guy. The promos, we never thought he was going to be such a great promo. It just is. So, but let's say it was a random, mystical versus. Okay. They say they had a 6-star match, right? Let's say they had a 6-star match. Mystical and Mercedes Monet's boyfriend, whatever is the bull, right? The bull. I've been drinking tonight, so the bull, right? And let's say they had a great match. I would acknowledge it. Right? It was a great match, Mystical and the bull. But John Cena and Cody would be way better, even though they didn't have the quality of match that the guys had.
Yeah.
For the same reason you said. I mean, it's John Cena. We've been connected to this guy for years. The moments are there. One of the reasons why WWE style is way slower is because they want you to sync in with the moments, right? The sell jobs. Every time they do a high spot, they replay them over and over because they want you to remember the big moments. Right when Logan Paul crashed into Jelly Roll, who was holding his balls, who was blocking his, for whatever reason, he was holding on to his balls. We got that replay over and over.
Yeah,
he's a good example, by the way. Logan Paul, who's relatively new, but has been promoted with all these moments. Right now when I think of him, I think of this awesome worker who's like a prodigy.
Yeah.
So when I see him wrestle, like his matches always stay with me, and so I think AEW needs to get better at the moments. I mean, that would be if they could solve that riddle, that would be amazing. I would be all in on them, no pun intended. But to answer your question, yeah, I would go with Cody and John Cena.
You know what's
For the
interesting?
reasons you stated.
What's interesting about their social media, Dave in the Observer, he lists out the top YouTube videos and the amount of views that they get. And when I see the AEW stuff, it's always guys who have a WWE past because WWE is so much better at the social media. Of course they are. They have full team to do that stuff.
Yeah, but Tony has money now. He needs to get a full team.
He does need to hire some more people. And you know what I was thinking is like, is it great that the most viewed AEW video is like 52-year-old Adam Copeland hugging Christian, you know, like that's the stuff that resonates to what is supposed to be the younger audience, instead of like, why is the Will Ospreay thing not the top video, or why is MJF not the top video? Though I think
have you talked to Dave? Did you bring this up to Dave?
We didn't really talk about
because
it today.
Again, with Dave, it's like, again, he'll sit there and it's like there's something he can't help himself because he's such a big fan of matches. But he'll sit there and tell you all day long, it's not about matches. It's not about matches, you know. And then, like within the next sentence, he's talking about the greatest match ever and how the show. Dave will always start when he's criticizing a show with how good the matches were. That's always going to be the barometer for Dave. And it shouldn't be like that, because to me the matches, yeah, they're there, but it's like there's other things, right? It's a variety show. What was there good angles? Was there good promos? How was the production? You know. And so again, he'll say no, matches are not good, and then he'll be like, well, the matches were great, and it was a great show because of that. And your point that you're making now, I wonder if he hears it, like how he would respond to that.
So you come from a movie background, and if you were to rank, like I'm thinking Cody Rhodes and John Cena, maybe it's equivalent to like Top Gun Maverick or something.
Yeah.
and versus like a very like art house kind of film that actually you watch and you go, wow, like that the acting, the directing was just top notch. Like, do you sit in the same spot with movies, or are movies different for a reason or two?
I mean, I have a criteria with movies, but at the same time, I acknowledge when they're not for me, you know. For example, Superman's a great example. I mean, because I always also go with the consensus. I respect the consensus quite a lot, because the consensus is like a bell-shaped curve. It doesn't lie. It's the population's opinion on anything. So I always respect the consensus, and I don't always agree with the consensus. Therefore, I say, you know what, this is not for me,
right,
or whatever. But I understand why. I will always go back to the Sami Zayn Johnny Knoxville match, okay? Because that was a very, like, that was just Dave being hard-headed. That match got over. It was amazing, and Brian was marking out. I was marking out, but it was still very rigid in the analysis with Dave, and it's like, but then you're gonna turn around and have Kenny Omega trying to stab John Moxley and being, well, I don't like that stuff, but I'm gonna give it 5 stars. See, and that's like that's where it gets a little like there's a discrepancy there. When it comes to movies, it's like I'll see the art house one and I'll love it, right? 4 stars or whatever, because movies are usually 4 stars. And although I have a 10, like 9 on 10, 7, that's my scale. And then I'll see like a schlocky, like low budget grindhouse movie, right? That has a big cult following. I understand the charm of it. It's not for me, but I also give it its props, you know? So that's kind of how I view it.
All right, let's end this. And one time you told me, you said, if the Fertittas ever get back into the UFC, then that's when I'll start watching the UFC again.
Yes.
Now that hasn't happened, but the latest rumor,
they're getting there though,
is that Lorenzo Fertitta could possibly be a buyer for TNA. Now, that rumor was on fire Thursday evening. by the time people watch this, that'll be a few days prior. But the name Lorenzo Fertitta coming up in a pro wrestling, like I never thought I would see those two that name connected with pro wrestling. But the theory behind this is WWE doesn't want to outright own TNA because of antitrust. So let's bring a friend of TKO in and have him be the owner, but we'll still run it. You know, he will be the official owner, but we'll have TKO people actually run the company. A, how crazy is this rumor? And B, like, do you think there's any truth to it at all, or do you sit on the, you know, this is bullshit until we get more information?
No, that's all or nothing thinking. I think there's nuance to this, but I do question. My biggest question is why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Lorenzo's counting his money for the rest of his life. Like, yeah, he's buds with Dana and stuff like that, but it just seems more trouble than it's worth. It's one of those situations like, okay, why do you want, like, go get someone else, you know, go get like Lorenzo he's cashed out, you know, and that's my biggest thing. Like, why would he do that? Especially because there is going to be that residue of like negative attention to it, because people are going to see through that.
Yeah,
right.
They'll figure out I mean, they've already figured out the reason.
Yeah, they already, so why would Lorenzo want to even put up with that shit? He's wealthy. He doesn't need that stress, and does he even like wrestling? Does he even know does he even know what TNA is? You know,
probably not.
I mean, maybe things like tits and ass, like Vince Russo used to, like. Yeah, so that's my only thing. Like, that's where I'm like, wait a minute, that's where it doesn't make sense, you know?
Okay, so Dave did not outright say this, but if I'm connecting the dots, he said Lorenzo had seller's remorse very soon after selling the UFC because of how they were able to create an even bigger business after he sold. And he even said he doesn't think Lorenzo wanted to sell it, but the price was so high that he kind of had to sell it. And so I sensed when he said that maybe Lorenzo somehow wants to be connected to TKO or to the UFC. Maybe he wants back in. Maybe he wants that sweet Dwayne The Rock Johnson deal where he gets a board seat and he gets shares of the company every 6 months or whatever. But it sounds like maybe he misses being a part of the whole thing. So it could be kind of a slight avenue back in.
Why didn't he get involved with the boxing company then?
Yeah, true.
I mean, maybe he will. Maybe that's, yeah, because that's more his passion. You know, he's a boxing guy. And also another thing too is that he's like 3 or 4 degrees separate from like the WWE. It's not like then my question becomes, why would Dana want to do that? Because Dana would be like the middle person between all this. Dana has, you know, he's another guy that has all kinds of stuff going for him. He's got a lot of stress. What I mean, and not that they're being bad friends or they're not being company people. It's just why. I mean, WWE could always get like another shell company with another person that's not even connected to buy this company and run it or whatever, you know. And I get it. I mean, they want TNA to be the number 2 brand. They want TNA to be the one that says, okay, they want to kind of muscle AEW out by using TNA. I get all that stuff. And for business purposes, even though it's predatory, it makes sense. But my question is just, Lorenzo Fertitta is such a weird ass name to pull out of a hat. when you have other people that could do that for you, why not get like Nick Khan's sister or something? She's also in the
right.
You know,
she's in Hollywood though, isn't she?
Yeah, she's like a producer in Hollywood. She was the one that produced the Rock's comedy, Young Rock, yeah, which I like, by the way.
Did you really like that show?
Except for Andre the Giant. That was a horrible Andre the Giant. Because he wasn't even like big or nothing. He was just a dude.
Okay, so the entry point, or the reason why I brought up the TNA thing wasn't just to talk about Lorenzo, but I wanted to get your thoughts as we end the show about this idea. Now, again, this is all rumor. There's nothing substantial that I've seen outside of, these are just ideas, of possibly getting TNA to compete head-to-head with AEW Dynamite, presumably on the CW network, because I think A&E, like WWE content, can't draw flies on there. So I don't think AEW A&E would be the choice. But let's say they can get on CW. The idea of putting TNA on Wednesday nights to chip away at the AEW TV show.
Yeah, that I mean, I don't know. TNA is so below AEW as far as fan base and whatnot. But if they start working, and again, if they start giving us the moments and the good matches, they could creep up. They're gonna have the WWE machine behind them, so they'll definitely get the exposure.
Would Cody Rhodes showing up and possibly doing a match with Moose or CM Punk, getting in a 6-man tag with the Hardys on his team, like, would that stuff?
I mean, they do that all the
even...
time, right? They do that all the time in NXT, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe you have Undertaker cutting a promo.
See, that's the stuff that I think wouldn't work, because I think the part of the thing that would possibly work now, and I don't even know if it would work, is if you go back 5 years when NXT and AEW went head to head, they would bring in the WWE talent, but WWE was far less popular than it is right now. So I think that's the question that would be answered is, now 5 years later, they're way more popular. Would those crossover promotion, would that work better? Because it didn't work the first time with NXT and AEW. Would it work now if you had Cody Rhodes? Could they actually beat a rating of AEW if you had Cody Rhodes and Moose in the main event, or whoever, Cody Rhodes and Trick Williams, whatever it is? But I think that would be the question. And you would really need to integrate TNA with some of the main roster stuff to see if that would work. But then if it didn't work, then you're just going to get your ass kicked on Wednesday night, which did not bode well for Triple H that first time that it happened.
Then you just close it. You just close TNA. You just
right.
library.
Right.
And like right now, they have AAA as well. So maybe why don't they put AAA on Wednesdays? Try to get a TV deal for it. Maybe that's another strategy they're trying to do.
Yeah. Are you going to watch Triple Mania?
Yeah, I am. That's like, looks like a good show. You know what? AAA has me excited. How about that? but it's because it's always been. You know what I'm gonna miss is that AAA was so wacky. It was wacky. There was this. I don't know if you know this, but the second La Parka passed away, legit, like a few years ago.
Yeah.
And there was this match where Vampiro, me and Danny call him Vampiro. He was having a match with Jeff Jarrett, right? Like a street fight. And they had a coffin there, dude.
Yes.
And they opened the coffin, and La Parka was in the coffin. Now, here's the thing. Okay, you're thinking American. For the Mexican audience, it's a weird, like, that you're paying respect to that character. Yes. So it got over, But that's the wackiness that I'm gonna miss about.
Go watch Coco for those folks who may not understand.
Yes, and also the fact that I was thinking, how are they gonna get Mr. Iguana? is short for marijuana. His name's Marijuana, but
yes.
he and Yeska is the slang for weed.
Yes,
his lizard. I'm thinking there is no way this is gonna get through. But then you had Joel Tessitore out there saying Yeska over, and I was popped because he's saying weed, like literally saying just there's weed in there, and so they're still either it's still getting through their sensors or
Joe Tessitore is also cool, so maybe he can.
He's awesome. He's one of the ones that he's really good at his job, and he comes off as a fan, but he's also very the straight man. But I was like, so the wackiness I'm gonna miss because they're already tweaking it. I could already see they got Conan out of the broadcast booth. Unfortunately,
well, we'll see. JBL says he's gonna be in there. But then he wasn't presented as being in there by WWE. So we'll see what happens actually on Saturday. By the way, people listening to this and watching this, by the time this airs, it'll be after Triple Mania. But I had to ask Draven because I was.
Yeah, but also it'll be archived on their YouTube channel.
Yeah, so you just go to YouTube and watch it.
Yeah, because another thing too about JBL, don't get fooled by the fact that he's JBL. He's actually been working for them for a while, and so he knows what's going on. That's part of the wackiness. You have JBL running around with the cowboy hat and his little cowbell, and he's been a part of he's been like one of their top heels, I would say, for the last year or so. So he's very familiar with the product. So it's not they're not doing the corporate thing where they're bringing in one of their guys. He knows what's happening there, and I'm sure they just needed somebody to be more bombastic than Conan, who was laid back. He probably had some of the marijuana himself that day, and he was just chilling, you know.
Iranian tobacco.
Yeah, the Iranian tobacco. So Mr. Iwana's a pun on weed culture, and they let that one go through. So and that's the guy that really got over. He got a contract out of it. So good for him.
What's up with Corey Graves' brother? Because why isn't he involved?
Because he's not with them anymore.
Yeah, but what happened? Like this would be kind of perfect for him, don't you think?
I think he just left the company. His contract ran down and he left, like everybody, you know, eventually does in every company. He's
not active though, right?
He doesn't these shots. I think he works for MLW.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, Adonis, right?
Yeah, Sam Adonis.
Yeah.
I just figured he would be perfect for this.
Maybe they'll bring him back now that his brother's connected to the connection.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's another reason why he's not there that I.
But he does the stereotypical like American, you know, calling everybody like slangs, like, you know, stereotypes, and they get all mad at him. So I don't know if the WWE wants that on their TV.
Yeah, no, 100%. I get that.
He does. He's like their version of like Kobe Covington, you know.
Yeah.
That was his gimmick. It was like the Kobe Covington of AAA.
Yeah. All right, we are done here. Appreciate Draven. By the way, as I probably told you this already, but you know, I do get feedback about this show, and these guys who are listening, they definitely put you over. They say, you know, you have a very intelligent and unique perspective on wrestling, and they like it when we talk about it. So, well, shout out to you for doing this. And yeah,
I've been watching a long time.
And we'll be back with more 84. We'll hopefully we'll be back a little sooner than last time, because I think we got to play a little bit of catch up. But we're gonna try and get through 84, and then we'll figure out if we do more or not. But I think it's this has been a fun thing for me to do. I always look forward to us doing this show. So that is it from here. Hope folks enjoyed it. You can check us out on fightgamemedia.com. For all of the content, but for Draven, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.